Joining us for more on exactly what is happening as far as the conflict between Israel and Iran, we have a member of the Knesset, which is, of course, the Israel Parliament. Joining us is Shelly Tal Meron. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us this evening. Let me begin by asking you, after what we have seen in terms of the US intervening and the strikes that have taken place on the nuclear facilities in Iran, the conflict between Israel and Iran continues. Both sides have exchanged fire again today. What are we looking at in terms of the impact of what we have seen taking place yesterday?
Well, first of all, I congratulate the Trump administration and President Trump, of course, for making the measures to make sure that the Iranians would not obtain nuclear weapons as well as ballistic missiles. As you know, we've been fighting this war for the past week. And, it's a pity to say, but we have nothing against the Iranian people. 40 years ago, we had amazing relations with Iran. And because of this regime, this fanatic regime that aims to destroy the state of Israel, we had to take measures to make sure that they do not obtain a nuclear weapon or ballistic missiles. They were producing the missiles in a very high speed, and therefore we had to take action. And we congratulate the Americans for joining in, not only because this is an existential threat to the state of Israel, but because this is a threat to the entire world. So I think that the measures that the Americans have taken are very important for the entire globe, not only Israel. And
Right.
so we are very satisfied with their decision. And we have to see where the next few days are going to go. So far, we're still having missiles being fired at the state of Israel. My daughters have to run to the shelter a few times a day and usually a few times at night. And we're hoping for this to end soon, since the aims of this war is to destroy the nuclear weapons and the ballistic missiles.
Right. What really are we looking at in terms of future, in terms of targets? We've seen, for instance, Iran's Supreme Leader, Mr. Ali Khamenei, he has vowed retaliation. Do you think that he is one of Israel's prime targets?
Well, he is not being targeted as one of the goals of this war. The goals are, as I mentioned, the nuclear weapons and the ballistic missiles. But, I'm sure that there are many Iranians that will be happy that regime will change and Iran will become a democratic state, because the regime right now is oppressing the Iranian people. They're treating their minorities in a horrible, horrible ways, women and the LGBT communities and other minorities. And I'm sure that there are many Iranians that are wishing for this regime to end. But this is not one of the goals of our government in this war. This is the decision of the Iranian people what to do with their country. And I'm hoping for them that it will become a democracy. I've also heard the son of the Shah asking the Iranian people to put their trust in him and give him the opportunity to change the regime there.
Right. Because the reason I'm asking you this, and it's very interesting that you mentioned regime change, because officially we haven't seen really this statement coming in about regime change. Today we have seen President Trump, though, put out on social media that it's not politically correct to use the term regime change. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA, make Iran great again, I guess, is what he's trying to say. The point is that, it was not in the stated objectives when we saw the strikes take place yesterday. But what's changed in 24 hours that we're hearing these voices of regime change now?
Well, first of all, we have to ask President Trump about that, because he's the one who tweeted this. But I can understand where he's coming from, because, Iran has such rich history and legacy. And it's very unfortunate that this fanatic regime is holding the people of Iran, like hostages within their own country. And so I do support what President Trump has said when it comes to making Iran great again. And I think having Iran become a democracy is a great goal. It's good for Iran and it's good for the entire world. Please don't forget that Iran has been the head of the snake for the past decades. They have declared war on the state of Israel decades ago, because they are the ones who are operating Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the Houthis in Yemen. and other militias around the globe. And they have a lot of terror groups that are within different countries around the world. So we need the head of the snake to stop funding terror. They should use their funds and resources to develop their own country and to feed their own people and not invest in terror.
Right. And how are you viewing the international response to the US strikes? Because we've seen Russia, we've seen China, who have made statements which have been in support of Iran. We even saw how they moved the UNSC late last night, early this morning, and there were, of course, statements over there. How are you looking at the international response? Is it as you expected?
Well, we have seen a lot of countries support Israel in the U.S. as well. We've seen, Germany and France and other countries who understand that the state of Israel has to defend itself. The point that we have gotten to is a point where this was an existential threat to the state of Israel, and we cannot afford that to happen. We had October 7th in 2023, where we had thousands of terrorists who invaded our borders and butchered our people and took 250 hostages, babies, families, children, elderly people. We cannot afford having other countries threat the main entity of the state of Israel. That is not something that any sovereign country would be able to agree to. And of course, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and so we see our allies around the world, and we think that we should all unite against this regime and against terror states that are operating these militias around the world. So I think that the world should support this cause. And of course, every time you can get to an agreement through diplomacy, it's always better. But when you have a country that is saying out loud, we want to eradicate the state of Israel, we want to destroy the state of Israel from anti-Semitism, we cannot agree to that. We have to defend our people.
Right. And looking at the fallout of this, Iran is talking about escalation. We're seeing how their parliament has approved, blocking the Straits of Hormuz. It is going to go before the National Security Council. Yet hasn't officially been announced in that sense. But already, in fears of it happening, we're seeing, rise as far as international oil prices are concerned. We're even seeing the impact as far as markets across Asia and different parts of the world. How are you looking at it if that does happen? Because there could be ripple effects felt across the world if Iran does go ahead and do that.
Well, it's their decision what they're going to do. I think that it's a high risk for Iran. I think that it's going to destroy them financially if they decide to do so, because this impacts many countries around the world and superpowers around the world. And therefore, I don't think it's very likely. But again, I cannot be sure what this regime is going to decide to do. I think it's going to be very harmful for Iran if they go in that way. And also, if they retaliate to what the Americans have done, they're looking into maybe even more military force against them by the US. And I wouldn't do that if I were them.
Right.
I think that the United States and Israel has sent a loud message to the regime in Iran not to threaten the free world anymore.
Right. Ma'am, we've seen that after the US strikes took place yesterday, where, of course, they dropped those bunker buster bombs, we've seen another set of strikes take place today at the same Fordo nuclear plant. Why do you think that has happened? Is there some unleft job over there? Was there something that Israel felt needed to be done? Can you explain that to our viewers as to why we saw these fresh strikes take place today at Fordo?
Well, first of all, in order to destroy the nuclear facilities, you have to use very specific bombs that go through into the ground, very deeply into the ground. I think it's going to take time to know exactly what the results of, the operation that took place yesterday. And so I'm sure that the Americans are looking into it, and I'm sure Israel is also looking into it. And if there is more to be done, there is more to be done. Don't forget that the enriched uranium that they already obtained might still be in there or has been, taken from there elsewhere.
There were
so I
satellite
think
pictures of it being allegedly taken out, some trucks,
Yes,
etc., that was
yes.
there in
So I
certain
think
pictures.
I think that the intelligence community is trying to make sure that Iran does not obtain the enriched uranium in order for them to reestablish the nuclear bombs that they were very close to having.
Hmm. Because, ma'am, that's another question that's doing the rounds. Because if they are able to get, the enriched uranium out of those plants and to perhaps another location, and, you are seeing the kind of noises coming in from Russia and other parts of the world where they're talking about, international powers giving a nuclear weapon to Iran, or Iran going ahead and with its nuclear weapons program to actually make it, many are going to question what was the need for these strikes if they are going to eventually get a weapon anyway.
Well, I think that there was no other choice but to attack the nuclear facilities, since Iran was very close to having nuclear bombs and they were saying out loud their intentions. So there was no other choice. But don't forget that, having enriched uranium go around the Middle East is not exactly healthy to the rest of the world, since we can have dirty suitcases, as they call them, going around the world and trying to have terror attacks around the world, as we've seen on 9/11 or other instances. We cannot afford that to happen. And therefore, this is the interest of many countries around the world. And don't forget that if Iran becomes a nuclear state, then other countries are going to want to join in. It will become a nuclear arms race around the Middle East and other countries. Maybe Turkey would want to join in. Maybe the Egyptians would want to join in. And this is not a healthy thing for the Middle East or the world. So we have to do everything that we can to make sure that the enriched uranium is not obtained by Iran. And I'm sure that the people who are supposed to deal with this are doing it as we speak.
Right. Ma'am, when it comes to Pakistan, earlier we had seen a senior leader in Iran come out to say that Pakistan would then, attack Israel with a nuclear weapon if Israel were to attack Iran. Pakistan, of course, denied that claim. But now the same Pakistan, which, was talking about giving a Nobel Prize to President Trump about a week ago, has come out to condemn Israel's strikes on Iran and, of course, the US strikes as well. How do you look at this shifting position of Pakistan? Because they've even supported, for instance, Iran at the UNSC.
Well, we have no business with Pakistan. And of course, I oppose what they have said. I think that it's very clear to the entire world that Iran is trying to destroy the state of Israel. I have no idea why any country should support having the destruction of the state of Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East that has been existing since 1948. And so, of course, I condemn that. And I ask them to join the free world in the choice of not having Iran being a nuclear state. And I'm hoping that they will do so.
Right. And ma'am, you're a member of an opposition political party. You're not part of the ruling, political party. What has been the impact domestically of all of this as far as the political scenario within Israel?
That's a very good question, because before the war with Iran started a week ago, we were opposing this government. I'm an opposition member. But when it comes to the war with Iran, we're all united. We all agree that this war had to take place. We had no other choice. We're very united when it comes to this front. And there is no opposition to the government when it comes to the war with Iran. Yes, we have disagreements in other issues, and of course internal politics and other things that are taking place in our country, and of course the war with Gaza. Let me remind you that it's been 625 days since we had October 7th, and we still have 50 hostages in Gaza. And so the opposition was calling the prime minister to create a deal to have the hostages return, and we were offering him a safety net so that he can create this deal. And we have said time and time again that we think that the war in Gaza should end. But when it comes to the war with Iran, there is no opposition. We're all very much united. We need to get through the past days, the days that are coming ahead of us, winning this war, winning this cause, and bringing more safety to the world.
Right. So are we looking at another long war like we've seen in the case of Gaza, like we've seen in the case of Russia, Ukraine, or forever war, as they're called in the United States?
I'm hoping not. I think that it's not in the interest of the state of Israel to have this war go on forever. I think that most of the goals that we have set, we have achieved them. I don't think it's going to take long to achieve the rest of the goals that we set. And so I'm hoping that this war won't last long, but we will do what we have to do to make sure that Israel is safe.
Right. And what is a possible, off ramp? What's a possible end game to this? Because, Iran will also have to, given the fact that it has seen so many strikes, Iran will also have to have something to save face. What is a possible solution to this kind of a crisis? It's a very difficult question, I know, to answer, but are you looking at some kind of a solution? Do you see a solution in sight?
Well, of course, if Iran decides to let go of the nuclear program, that will be the best choice for them and for the entire world. And I think that if that is the case, then there is an agreement that can be achieved. And we can cease fire from both sides as long as we are sure that Israel is safe and the rest of the world is safe. And I think that this is, as I've said, it's not only the interest of the state of Israel, it's the interest of the United States and the rest of the world. So if Iran decides to let go of the nuclear program, then everything is possible.
All right. Easier said than done at the same time. But Shelly Tal Meron, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me.